Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Board Game Nerds. I'm your host, Nick, and with me today, my co-host, Ulrik.
Well, hello there.
Today, we have a very special episode that we're very happy to record. We're doing an interview with Kingdom Legacy designer Jonathan Fryxelius. We've been waiting for this for a long time, and make sure to stay until the end because we have a very, very nice surprise for you.
Yeah, we just reached out to Jonathan, and he was gracious enough to give us his time and give us a lot of information. So you should look forward to this interview.
Definitely. See you in there. So, Jonathan, welcome. I'm Nick, and this is Ulrik. We are from the Board Game Nerds, and we're huge fans of the game. Thank you so much for bringing it to our attention. What we want to start is tell us a little bit about yourself and how you actually started this career you are now in. I'm assuming it's your full-time job, the game designing thing?
It is now, yeah. We started growing up in one of the largest families in Sweden. We're 16 brothers and sisters, so it's one of the. I think we're the third largest family in Sweden, and I'm the 14th child, so I'm one of the youngest. And sorry, my father, he got hold of some strategic games from the United States in the 70s, and they were like one of the first countries to develop strategic games, and they even used it for the military training, like strategic thinking and things like that. And anyway, he got hold of some strategic games from the US through some board game conventions in Sweden, and afterwards he was in love with these games. And the problem was that it was very hard to import games to Sweden from the United States in the 70s. So he started making his own games, or remaking the games that he had played that he wanted to continue playing, but he didn't have them. So. And once you do that, you can start realizing that if you didn't like the game exactly as you played it, you can start, making small adjustments. And so my oldest brothers, they grew up playing the games that he made. I grew up playing the games that he made and the games that my brothers made. So it was very natural for us. We didn't have a TV growing up. With 16 kids, you don't have a great economy. So we made the most we could do with our own, just hanging around and socializing over the board games. So we grew up. This was one of the main hobbies in the family, to play games together and developing games and be creative. Then we never pursued to do this as a like a profession. We only did it for fun. The closest we got was when two of my brothers did it as a project work in school, that they were trying to take one of the games that we made and actually pitch it to a company for publication, and nobody wanted it. So that was that. And then my brother, one of the brothers, continued working on it for 10 more years after that.
Wow.
And that's when we get to 2011, when my brother, another brother, had some kind of life, midlife crisis, and he had what do you call it? A degree in economics, but he was sitting in the cashier at this local supermarket.
Okay.
And he got this thought, I don't want to be here for the rest of my life. Do I have any skills that I could make money off? And he said, no, I don't. But do my brothers have any skills that I can make money off? And they're like, yeah, they're making games. Let's try this. And so he called everyone who wanted to join and tried to make this a more professional hobby and not just a hobby. And four of us brothers decided to start this company, Fryx Games. And that's when we began with the game that we tried to get published 10 years back. And we also, made more games. So that's the origin story of Fryx Games.
Wow.
And then for 5 years we released new games, but it was still just a hobby. We didn't get any pay for it. At best, we sold as much of the games that we could reinvest that money into new projects, and we could buy a 3D printer, and we could buy software so we can do graphics and things like that. And then came Terraforming Mars, and that changes everything.
Yeah.
Which game?
So that's
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that was a bad joke.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a joke here because I am a huge fan of Terraforming Mars, #1 game for a long time, and we all are super fans of the game. And I wanted to start. There was another game. It's called Brawling Barons, I think, that you kind of developed. Did that have anything to do with
I
your
was just-
developing?
Yeah.
There we go.
It looks
Yes,
like it has some of
yes.
the same rotating cards mechanic.
Exactly.
In Legacy.
And I was expecting this to come up because
yeah.
this is one of the first parts. Me and my brother Benjamin made this game,
Wow.
and
Yes.
it was actually based on. It's just a small deck of cards,
Mm-hmm.
and the cards have the same back, but on the front side, a lot of them have two sides. So you're
Exactly.
going to
Mm-hmm.
switch them over. You're going to upgrade them. This was actually an idea that my brother Benjamin got from ordinary playing cards. You see the knight and the queen and the king, and they have images that are the same when you turn them around.
Exactly.
But he thought, you could. What if you could turn them around and they become something else?
Yeah.
And that's how we got this idea of upgrading
Cool.
cards in this way. But this was a very scaled down version,
Yeah.
and this was one of the first projects we ever made. So we had to keep it very, very tiny. So this idea of upgrading cards has always been something that I love, and I've been experimenting with a lot of different mechanics for upgrading cards. I even I'm even right now making a computer game where I go to absurd lengths in how you can upgrade cards. I just take advantage of everything that a computer can do that you cannot do on a physical card, and let this game explore that.
Interesting.
So I've always loved upgrading cards, and I experimented somewhat with a four-sided card mechanic like I have in Kingdom Legacy for my game Fate that I released also last year.
Yeah.
But in the end, we skipped that mechanic in that game because it became too convoluted. It was like we needed those aspects to be simpler in the game to bring forth other dimensions. So we skipped that. So I've been working on this mechanic for a long time, and 2 years ago in Essen, I guess 2.5 years ago now, several components for the game came together. So I had this idea of having the four-sided cards, and I had this idea of making the world's smallest legacy game.
Nice.
Because I love the thought of legacy games. I like, but I also was quite inspired by Tiny Epic Galaxies and the Tiny Epic series.
I figured.
Because they are, it's not that I've been playing them a lot, but I was fascinated by how much game they can squeeze into such a small package. And one of my first project names for Kingdom Legacy was actually Tiny Epic Galaxy, and then Tiny Epic Legacy. But of course I couldn't take that one. That was just a project name, but it shows my inspiration from trying to cram a lot of game into a small package. And then came the second, hard part was having a card game that you could play for a long time, even though it's only 140 cards. How could you, make this survive a 10-hour game, for example, which is in the base game right now, 6 hours for the base game and then 1.5 hour for 3 expansions. And I got that idea from one of my wife's puzzle games called Tantrix. So Tantrix is a bag of hexagonal tiles, and each tile has ribbons going from one side to another side, and they are different colors. So, for example, one tile could be a red and a green and a blue ribbon, and they go different ways. And you start the game with only 3 tiles, and the goal is to put those tiles as a puzzle so that one of the color ribbons forms a loop.
Okay, I see.
Okay, so it's quite simple. But every time you do that, every time you succeed in doing this loop, you then add one more tile, and then you have to rearrange all these tiles to form a new loop.
Okay.
And I got this idea that you start with only a few cards, but every time you bring in another tile, all the old tiles come into a new perspective, and you can use them again in a new context. And that's when I got this idea that I should have a game where you're playing rounds and you're playing through your deck, and every time you play through your deck, you're getting some new cards, which puts everything into a new perspective. And so I combined that with my ideas for four-sided upgradable cards, and that's when I got this idea.
That's where the magic happened.
Yeah. That's what. Yeah, in Essen, when I was home after a long day demoing games in Germany.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hit it.
One thing I was wondering about in the development, the purging aspect, was that like a core idea from the beginning, or is that something that came when you played too many expansions and your deck was this high?
Well, the first expansion I developed was Distant Lands, and that was made to be a pure continuation of the game. So you just continue where you left off, and that actually worked. I didn't have Purge back then, but it became apparent that this was going to be a problem. The rounds would become too long and too convoluted, so I needed some way to make sure that you're keeping focus. And you cannot keep focus if the deck grows too big.
Exactly.
And we still have this problem. When you're playing 10 expansions right now, you have so many themes, you have so many different effects, and you generally purge the pure resource cards.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just tend to do that because you think that the effects are cool.
Yeah.
But then it means that you're going to have a pretty large deck and a pretty large deck where every card has an effect, and it becomes a lot of information. So one of the things we've been discussing is if we should increase the purge even more for future prints, make it even harsher.
Yeah.
On the other hand, because this is a game that you're buying the expansions, you don't want to buy something and then you feel afterwards like you didn't progress. You want your kingdom to expand, you want your kingdom to develop, and you don't want to feel like, oh, that was plus minus 0.
Yeah, that was I totally get why it's there, but the first time I played an expansion, I was like, I do what? I work so hard for these cards, which is a good thing because you really care about the cards, right? And now I have to just decide which one goes. I'm the executioner now.
Exactly.
That's like,
and you've told me a few things. Sorry, John.
Yeah, there are a few different aspects to the purge which are very interesting. One of them is the thematic thing. So, what is a purge? I leave that up to the imagination to the player. Some people, when you purge them, they just die of old age. Some of them you might get rid of because they did something inappropriate. You're building all these stories in your head. Or sometimes it's just the cause of time. In 50 years, this building was left abandoned and it no longer affects you. And in some ways, the purged cards, they didn't even leave your kingdom. They just went to the periphery. They don't really matter much. They're still there, but you're not actively using them anymore.
The carpenter just retired, right?
Yeah, so the purge is very, thematically you can build all sorts of stories with it, so that's a good thing. But the other thing that is very interesting is that I really wanted, one of my design goals was to have this feeling of a living, breathing kingdom standing in your bookshelf. So, yeah.
You definitely succeeded in that one for sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So basically, you're playing the game, you're shaping your kingdom, and then you put it on the shelf, and then you go about your everyday life, and in a few months later, war breaks out in your kingdom. Oh, I have to see to this, and you bring out your kingdom and you play this war, and you put it back. Okay, my kingdom survived the war. Okay, and then I'll continue. And one part of having something that feels living and breathing, of course, is that it has to be shaped by your decisions. And that is partly what the legacy mechanic does. But the purging is very important to make sure that different players are forced to do slightly different choices. Because of the randomness I take 12 cards and I have to choose one of them. That forces players to diverge from each other. And even though you're playing the same expansions in the same order, the purge means that you will not be ending up with the same kingdom. It just forces diversity, and that I think is a very big strength of the game. That every time you've played, it actually feels like a new kingdom doing new things, even if you're playing the same expansions in the same order.
Definitely feels like that. I mean, having played it now a few times, it's definitely every time you get this choice, you're like, oh, what am I going to do? And it feels way more different than the other times that you play. You've experimented a little bit with other ways of keeping cards out. Let's say something like the pilgrimage or something like blocking cards, and that also I have seen that it kind of works with keeping the deck size down. Can we expect other things like that maybe in the future? Not to get too spoilery, just if you've experimented with other ways besides purging to keep the deck size down.
Well, one of the most important things I do in Distant Lands is that you're playing a few rounds and then you just go away with a small subset of your kingdom.
Mind blown for me when I did that.
Yeah. it's in that case in Distant Lands it also feels so thematically perfect because you're actually leaving your kingdom behind and you're going away and you feel kind of alone. You're going out on the sea and it's only us. It's only six persons and some ships.
Yeah, and somebody didn't load enough stones on my boat, and
yeah. So I'm several expansions do similar things. I'm not sure that they are thematically as perfectly fitted to their story that Distant Lands is. For example, I have one of my very appreciated prototype expansions is the castle. And in this expansion, it's a big box expansion. In this expansion, you're building a castle, and you're doing this, and you know the whole kingdom is not with you in this endeavor. You're building this castle, and you only use the workers, and you use, you know, some of your kingdom. So in the same way, you're focusing down on who do I want to bring on this journey and help decide the kingdom or the castle design. And this is also very fun because you're building a castle throughout this expansion, and when the expansion is over, the castle is done, whether you like it or not. That's the end result. So you have to make sure that you finish every detail that you want in the expansion, and then after the expansion, you get the final concept.
Wow, that sounds very interesting, actually. Yeah, nice.
Like we didn't play our last game of Kingdom Legacy.
Yes, exactly. All right. What's next?
But it's been several iterations of development, and it's still very unbalanced. So this is one of the expansions that I have to rework a few times.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Is the one, and of course, if you can talk about it, if you can't, feel free not to. Is exploration the one that you've been working on like the most, and it's like the next one in line to release? Am I correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us anything about
exploration that? It was sent to the factory last week.
Oh.
So it's on its way. It's going to be
breaking
printed.
news.
We hope
Breaking
to have
news.
It in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what you
so we hope to have it in our.
Yeah.
We hope to have it in our web shop in April.
Okay, nice.
April, we hope.
Nice, exciting. Nice. Yeah, I've been reading through the playthrough you've been doing with your brothers and sisters, and this exploration expansion seemed very, very interesting. You can go here and there, and I'm really looking forward to discovering it.
A lot of the expansions are based on some feedback from some person that they think, oh, I would love to do this, and like that just spurs all my imagination. It's like, okay, but let's make an expansion where you can do exactly that. Cool. So exploration, for example, is my brother Thomas is one of the avid gamers of Kingdom Legacy.
Yes.
And he said to me after playing a few rounds, a few different kingdoms, and he said that even though you have a lot of choices, you often end up in a place where you need, for example, stone production. And right in that time, in that setting where you need the stone production, you cannot choose then and there to get stone production. So how do I shape the kingdom more actively, exactly as I want it?
Okay.
So I wanted to make exploration to allow for much more free exploration, like much more free shaping your kingdom.
All right.
And do you want to know more about it?
Of course,
as much as possible,
as much as you can tell us, of course. No, don't need to go above and beyond. We want to hear as much as you can tell us. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I made it. I can tell you almost anything about it. So in exploration, you get a new mechanic. So you have a deck of cards called Unexplored Lands. And they are like unused lands, like the forests and mountains and fields and oceans, and all kinds of unused land.
Okay.
And you get a card into your deck called Exploration. And when you use the Exploration card, you're going to look at the top 3 cards of the unexplored deck, and you can choose one of them to explore, and the other one goes down in the bottom of the deck. So that's a way you always get 3, choose one, and next time you get 3 new, choose one of them. So you get these unexplored lands. But the issue with this is that every one of these lands, they are upgradable, and they lead to different sides where they will reference new cards. most of them have 4 upgrades, and they are new kind of upgrades. So instead of the brown boxes upgrades, they are yellow box upgrades, which means that they are not leading to new sides of the same card, they are leading to a brand new card.
Oh, okay.
So if you get the valley, for example,
Yeah.
you get a valley, and you can upgrade that into a farmland. So you have like a vineyard type valley. And then you can choose if you want to upgrade this card into one of 2 possible new cards, like a winery or a tourism resort. And if you use those upgrades, those are yellow box upgrades, that means you reset this card, put it back on bottom of the unexplored deck, and you get the new card.
Awesome.
Which means that all these unexplored lands, they're just coming back and back and back and back. And it basically means that there are many valleys. Even though there's only one valley in the unexplored lands, once you do something with it, you can just go and explore another valley and maybe do something else with that valley. And in the same way with mountains or rocky areas or forests of different kinds.
Sounds very interesting. Yeah. Is it a big expansion or is it a smaller expansion? Is it one of
Oh, yeah, it's a big one. 160 cards.
Yeah. And it counts as 2 when playing it?
So, like,
final question.
No, it's a one expansion.
Okay.
But it only gives you 5 rounds of play.
Okay. Cool.
So it's definitely and you maybe saw that in the tournament that we made.
Yes.
A lot of people playing exploration, they want to play it pretty early.
Exactly.
Because even if you take it as your first expansion, you will not discover everything in this expansion for the whole campaign. And that is one of the design principles as well. I really wanted to have endless exploration. And also for another reason. One of the most boring aspects of Kingdom Legacy, one of the pitfalls that you can end up in, is if you actually finish almost everything in your kingdom and you have almost nothing to do. You just draw cards, advance, and there's nothing to do. So in exploration, I really make sure that there's always something to do. There's always more to do.
Very interesting.
And also, we made it so that you can share this expansion between 2 kingdoms. So even though it's only one expansion, you can actually have 2 kingdoms using the same exploration box, discovering lands from the same set. And that's for 2 reasons. One of the reasons is to introduce slightly player interaction. If you want that, you don't have to do that. But if you want that, you can have some interaction where you say, okay, this is a land grab. We have 2 kingdoms and we're pretty close to each other. But if I discover this valley, then you have to go somewhere else. So it's kind of narrative interaction. But there's also another reason, and that is if you want to take exploration pretty late in your expansion series, like for example expansion 7 or 8, you will only discover a fraction of all these cards. And we don't want the user to then have to throw away the box with like 100 unexplored cards.
Exactly.
So that's why we allow another kingdom to use the same set. So that means that 2 kingdoms can have good discovery and exploration from the same set without too much waste.
Actually. Cool. Yeah.
Now that we are on the topic of expansions, you already sort of told us that you're working very much in parallel on different stuff. It seems like.
Yes.
Is there any relation between the release order of the expansions and the development order and the recommended play order? If we can have those 3 things as a concept.
No, I don't think so. I very deliberately made this game to be an open sandbox for the player to discover and to... I actually looked forward to having more discussions on Board Game Geek about preferred orders of play.
Yeah.
And instead of... Well, I shouldn't say instead of, but... what I find on Board Game Geek is more like people asking for the right direction instead of people genuinely and out of I would love when people ask. Other players are very friendly to give them their experiences, but I would rather have the passionate players describe their story and say, this is what I experienced when I did this.
Exactly.
Instead of having players just ask, what should I do? I want someone else to decide for me. It's like, I want you to explore and I want you to share your exploration. I want you to share your story. I want to see how you experience this journey.
Yeah, the reason for my question was I followed the release order because I bought Kingdom Legacy, I think slightly after it came out at Essen. And then there was the Merchants and the Adventures.
Adventures, yeah.
So I just played them as they came out, and it completely natural until I hit ambitions. I'm not saying it was bad to play there. I was just like, oh, this could have been cool to play earlier, or because you get all these permanents, and so that was the first time where I'm like, oh, so I can actually decide, and
You're
there's a different way to do it. Because in the first playthrough, I was just following what came naturally to me. So that wasn't a question. That was just a little story.
Yeah, and now I think we're at the point where
Yeah.
there are enough released expansions where you, even if you play all of them, you are leaving some of them out. I mean, especially with foundations where you can play it even twice and add more foundations. Now you can really make a choice if you want to include like the pre-built expansions or play all of the different ones, which is nice, especially as the game becomes more, more expansions come up. Then it's really gonna be, oh, should I do exploration, foundations, ambitions? What should I do? I'm really looking forward to having so many options that what should I explore next? I think that's cool.
Yeah, and that's what happened also in our tournament where
Yeah.
we were playing also with 5 other prototype expansions.
Yeah, I'm seeing
That
so many
we
names.
actually
Yeah.
again we're actually forced to go even more different
Yeah.
routes and trying different things, and we see all these possible combinations, and you cannot have it all. You
Yeah.
have to choose.
Exactly.
And that's again, it's very deliberate, and I think it was a great milestone when we released Foundations, because that's when we exceeded 10 jungle expansions,
exactly,
and
yeah.
I really think that's good.
You've talked a little bit about, sorry if I'm merging in here, about different kingdoms, like the Viking kingdom or the Desert Kingdom is what you've been calling them. Can you elaborate a little bit about those? Are they going to be like Feudal Kingdom, but you will play different expansions based on them? Something like that?
Yeah, yes. So basically, the rules are exactly the same, but the themes are different.
Okay.
So you have the same length of base game, and it follows the approximately same difficulty curve. So you will recognize some of the pacing, but it's going to be about a lot of other stuff. So there are going to be different keywords that are important. For example, in Feudal Kingdom, you gain your main economy from farmlands
Exactly.
and lands. And in the Northern Kingdom, you're not doing that.
Okay.
In Northern Kingdom, you get your main production and economy from livestock.
Okay.
So you have to breed a lot of livestock. And that's a fun thing about the Merchants expansion is that when I made that, I made sure to include cards from both Feudal Kingdom and Northern Kingdom
Yes.
and Desert Kingdom.
Nice.
So Merchants was about like a way for different kingdoms to access cards from other kingdoms.
Yes.
And of course, people playing it now have no idea.
Yes, but
because
actually,
they haven't
yeah,
seen the other
I
kingdoms.
wanted to say that one of my questions was that in the Merchants expansion, I felt like the livestock, there was a little bit of a small thematic disconnect, if I'm allowed to say that, because we've seen animals very rarely, and Merchants gave us a lot of animals that bred other animals, and I'm like, this could be leading into something. And now you just said that
Yeah.
one whole kingdom is based on livestock, which now makes Merchants seem like, makes so much sense.
Yes.
Yes, which is
Yeah.
awesome.
And in the same way, so livestock is important for the Northern Kingdom, and it's partly important for the Desert Kingdom as well. So the camels, for example, are
Yeah.
from the Desert Kingdom, of
Exactly.
course. But there are also other different things. For example, in Northern Kingdom, the concept and the keyword of elder is much more important.
We've seen some elders. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we try to scatter these keywords around, especially in the expansions that you can play with any kingdom.
Exactly.
For example, Reading in the Woods or Distant Lands, they can be played with any kingdom, so they need to also have stuff that is relevant to the other kingdoms. But they also have a new keyword which is not almost anywhere except for one part in exploration, and that is the rune keyword. So you're gathering runes,
yes,
and you're
that was
trying
my
to
next question.
Yeah. We do have a card out now also, right? It's called Land Rune. We do have one rune card released. I don't remember from where it
Yeah,
comes from.
in Ambitions. Yeah,
Ambitions,
that's true.
yes.
Yeah, the
Yes,
border stone.
it's time. Yeah.
Yes, that's true. That's a rune.
Yeah.
And that's what the Northern Kingdom they're collecting runes, and that's one of the
Okay.
main.
Interesting.
So they have elders,
Okay.
they have livestock, they have runes, and that's
Okay.
their main stuff. So Feudal Kingdom is very much like the vanilla game of.
Yeah. All right.
I can say in retrospect that the knights and ladies is very special for Feudal Kingdom. That's something that is not coming in the same way in the other kingdoms.
All right.
And then we have the Desert Kingdom, and Desert Kingdom is well, it's more Arabic inspired, like nomadic
Nice.
tribes, and also based a lot on ancient Egypt with the polytheistic pharaohs and building pyramids and things like that. And it's very interesting. They have a river mechanic. So a lot of the upgrades require you to have the specific card river in play. And that's why you also want to go to the distant lands and bring a river back, or you should try to get rivers from other places because you need water, because that's the most important resource.
Is there? I mean,
So that's interesting. And no.
Go. Joe, continue.
Oh yeah, and over time, I find myself every time I find a new fun mechanic that I introduce to one of these kingdoms, it usually finds its way into the other kingdoms as well. Because if it's a fun mechanic, I want to use it more.
Exactly.
So, for example, if you played Foundations and you discover the archbishops,
Yes.
so the archbishops are effects that apply every round. You change the archbishops, and you have new effects every round. And that is a mechanic from Desert Kingdom from the beginning. So Desert Kingdom uses leaders, and you have different leaders for your kingdom.
Nice.
And in that case, some of the leaders die over time, so you have to cross out, the sides of these cards.
Okay.
But the mechanic having one effect each round, that comes from Desert Kingdom. And the whole concept of Foundations was I developed it first for Desert Kingdom, and then I found this expansion idea is so good that I want it for every kingdom.
Yep, it is. Personally, I think it is. Yeah. I know it's pretty early to talk about that, but is there a release schedule for these big kingdoms, or is it still like in development and waiting, and we don't have a timetable yet?
It is in development. The first one we will release, it will be the Northern Kingdom.
Northern, yes. Okay, cool.
And there are thoughts of having, pushing development and trying to get it done so that we can release it even this year. Northern Kingdom, the first. But I will not promise anything because we're already
of course.
way back, set back on expiration. We wanted to release that in this winter. Before New Year, but we're already 4 months late, so no promises there.
No.
I'm also developing, right now I'm developing the Eastern Kingdom, because if I have the Eastern Kingdom as well, which is more like Asian and Chinese culture, we're basically, having the whole, the Northern Kingdom, we have the Western Kingdom, which is basically feudal kingdom, we have the Southern Kingdom, which is, more Africa, Middle East, and then we have the Eastern Kingdom, which is more Asia.
Nice. Okay.
And that the whole world.
With with all these releases coming up, Jonathan, I will somebody that really loves the game and wants to get into it, although it seems like it's a small starting price to get into it, it eventually scales up. And people have been asking about a combination of boxes. And you've been saying that having that forces a player to actually follow a direction, and that's not how you want to go about it. But is there something like that in the talks or in the process for people who want to really enjoy it, but are afraid that the price range might start to get a little bit more, because it's also a legacy game. You can theoretically play it once, although I know many people do not. They use sleeves and markers and play it again and again and again.
Yeah. When I made the game, I was aiming for it to cost €10, not 15. And I wanted the booster pack expansions to cost 5, not 8.
Yeah.
So that would make a whole lot of difference.
Definitely,
But it was just not possible.
Yeah,
Even though we're doing everything we can to keep the costs down, it's not feasible. So it is more expensive than I wished
originally
that it would be. But it's I'm trying to think about legacy games, and I think you have to have a specific mindset for it. Because if you're comparing this to other kinds of games, board games that you're playing over and over and over again, they have at least potentially an extremely low money per hour rate.
Exactly.
On the other hand, if you're having a game that costs a lot and in the end it's only good for 2 or 3 times, then even though you say that the potential is very low rate per hour played, you're not going to do it. So what we hope for is for people to watch this more as an experience, watch it more like going to the cinemas and having
that
an
was
experience.
My example.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think we both agree. We just wanted to also hear you explain this opinion so people can understand how we and you view this game and how it should be viewed, I believe. More like a
Yes.
story or like going to the movies is a perfect example you've also referenced before. Yeah. All right.
Yes, and in that, having said that, there's one thing that I'm a bit weary of, and that's um, if you're playing this very intensely and you're playing it like the base game, and then you're playing two expansions in one sitting, it's like you're playing like crazy. There is a risk, even though I love people being this into the game, but I don't want it to be like a chore.
Yeah.
I don't want it to feel like you're not just going through the motions. And sometimes I would just suggest to some players, take a break. You played a few rounds, take a break now, so you can soak this in. You can let it land in some way, and then you can come back to it, and you can start taking up the stories. Because at some points, if you're just doing it as fast as you can, it becomes more mechanically, more mechanic than narrative. And I think the narrative is it deserves more.
Yeah. Makes
I
sense.
definitely had that experience playing through it for the first time. As I said, I followed the release schedule, which meant when I was done with Distant Lands, I was like, but now what?
You have to
So
wait.
I was really frustrated.
Yeah.
But then, like I said, I got all these good memories, put it on the shelf. Time went by. Oh, there's a new thing coming out. Oh, now I'm excited. And then
Yeah.
I'm sitting back down. Oh, there's this guy. Oh, I forgot I met this guy. Like then I rediscover all the cards again, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's very cool. The big problem with that instead now I'm talking about everything now, both positive and negative, because if you have several kingdoms, if you're and I of course have many kingdoms. There is a risk if you're leaving one of them for some time that you're mixing them up, and that makes it can be hard to get into your kingdom again if you forgot what you're.
I'm definitely a mono kingdom guy.
Yeah, you're a mono kingdom guy. Speaking about kingdoms, something that you've said before, and this is the final thing we're going to talk about, expansions, and we're going to talk a little bit more specific about some cards we want to talk about. You mentioned, I believe, a few months back in a forum that there's going to be like an 11th like closure expansion. Is that something that I understood correctly, or that you can play as a closure to your kingdom? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, we just did an internal try for this final expansion. I've done two versions of it, and it was a lot of differences from the first to the second, and now we tried it the second, and I realized we have to do some major adjustments again.
Okay, cool.
So I don't want to say too much, but basically, every time you finish an expansion, the world is still open.
Yes.
You still want to do more. You still want to explore more. You can always, add more cards. But at some point, when you get through 10 expansions, it's simply almost impossible for me to make a challenge which I can be confident is not too hard, but also not too easy, because people are going to be having wildly different potential after 10 expansions. I cannot even begin to describe how extraordinarily different kingdoms will be. So at some point I have to put an end to the discovery, but having an end at 10 expansions, that's a mechanic end. There's nothing preventing me from continuing on. So what I want is for people to be satisfied and say that, okay, after these 10 expansions, and then in this case an end expansion, I need to feel like I'm not even interested in going further with this kingdom, but I am very interested in starting over with a new one.
I'm already thinking about mechanics in my head that I think will be in there.
Very interesting. Cool. But it also sounds like a challenge design-wise, right? To do that.
It is. Yeah. It's definitely, because I want players to be able to take leverage from everything they've gained, and that means that I have to have uses for all the resources.
Yes.
I have to have uses for all kinds of effects to make sure that every kind of kingdom can have their way of tackling these new obstacles and these new challenges. Otherwise, it will feel like if I do an end expansion and it only fits a few certain kinds of kingdoms, then I'm already excluding some of maybe expansions and maybe plague types.
Yes, exactly.
So it is a challenge, because I want every kind of kingdom to be able to go through this end story and feel like they accomplished something and they had their strengths.
Excellent. Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah, I'm still missing one expansion in my first kingdom, so I never reached that
Point.
Oh, I can never go any further, and I'm dreading that. So what you're talking about sounds very satisfying. But I
But
actually, yeah,
before you go, because there's one more expansion concept that we haven't talked about, and which
Ooh. There
I'm
we
very
go.
happy about it. But
There you go.
so Kingdom Legacy is designed as a solo game.
Yes. Oh, yes.
But I cannot help but have ideas for how to make it multiplayer. And you see this tiny interaction in the exploration where you have two kingdoms, and it's very subtle in interaction. It's basically if you take that, I cannot. So it's not much, but it's a little bit. But I have a few prototype expansions as well, where you have direct interaction with each other. For example, Kingdoms at War, where you basically challenge another kingdom to a war, and you're playing your decks against each other, and trying to find relics under the ground that you're fighting on, and things like that. And another multiplayer expansion is Bordering Kingdoms, which is even more of a land grab than Exploration is. And I have some plans for a trading expansion where you're collaborating with other kingdoms, and also a cooperative expansion where you're being jointly attacked by an even bigger kingdom,
Holy moly.
and you have to stand ground together so that your continent is not defeated. So there are also things about these multiplayer aspects. Now, in honesty, most people like the game as a solo game, and that's the preferred way to play it. So even though I love the idea of having multiplayer expansions, they're likely not being released any day soon because we will focus on the thing that most people are interested about.
Yeah.
but also if there is more than 10 expansions out there, then you can just not play the dueling expansion if you're not into that, right?
Yeah.
So me and Nick can
Yes, and
play
perhaps
eight.
I will. Yeah, and perhaps I can even include solo rules even for the multiplayer
Yeah.
expansion. So even though you could play it multiplayer, you could also play it
Yeah.
solo, maybe.
Cool.
But that's also a challenge in its own.
Yeah.
And to be fair, even though I think we are both solo gamers, me especially, I'm a super solo gamer, I wanted to introduce Kingdom Legacy somehow to my girlfriend. So what I did is we played two kingdoms side by side. And it was honestly, hands down, one of the best board gaming experience I had, watching her struggle through things. So having a cooperative Kingdom Legacy actually sounds very intriguing, even though I am an adept solo gamer. That would be very interesting, I think. All right, you have a card out there, Ulrich.
Yes,
Wanted
you
to talk
mentioned
about?
the bringing cards in from other expansions and stuff, and I have been wondering about this guy. Is he from the northern? Is he from the
Yeah.
northern kingdoms? After what you said?
Well, I'm not going to spoil
Yeah,
the
of course,
secrets.
yeah.
The thing, he's so fun. This rescued king.
How many times have you
And
heard about him
everybody,
from people?
oh, several times,
Yeah.
and a lot of people asking
Yeah.
when do I get his sticker?
Exactly.
And I'm like, I'm switching, pendling between never giving anything at all, and just letting him have his empty words.
Yeah.
He's just he's a king. You rescued him, and he's just promising that he will make it up to you.
Exactly.
But it was empty words,
Yeah.
just empty
Cool.
words.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it would be fun if you
Yes.
have a very specific expansion somewhere where you will actually be able to get his sticker.
All right.
Yeah, this is one of the cards that in math logic I should purchase this guy because he's giving me 15 points. He does nothing to my deck, but I don't want to.
Exactly.
I want to see what he does.
I'm sure a lot of people are keeping him in.
This is one of the cards that I'm keeping in for sentimental, emotional values, not because he does anything good in my game.
Yeah. And similar.
And that's
yeah.
good. That's
similar
I
to
like
the king.
that.
Yeah, similar to the king, we've been collecting different artifacts throughout the different expansions. Can you elaborate anything about them? Of course, no pressure, no spoilers. Up to you.
Well, the artifact is a more that they are a bit more obvious that you'll find their use
Yes, somewhere.
especially in the end expansion.
Perfect. Yeah.
Got it.
That's
I
where
assume
you
so. All right.
that's everything
Makes
everything
sense.
leads up to
Perfect.
that.
Are there any cards? Are there
and-
any other cards like that? Like that you will find
That
use for
you-
them in the final expansion, like the artifacts, or is the artifact like the main thing that's?
Yeah, that is the main thing,
Okay.
because that's what the story is about, let's
Got it.
say. But who knows? Maybe the king as well.
Interesting. All right.
Cool,
Thank
cool,
you for
cool.
that, Jonathan. Anything else you want to shoot?
Yeah, now that you talked about testing all these expansions and stuff, we did want to talk a little bit about how, or if you even try to balance a game like this, because
Yeah.
it seems like there is more combinations than there are stars in the galaxy for this deck.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way I could think of to
Yeah.
test is to just give people a deck and say, try to break the game and make the craziest combo, and then you tweak things down, or do you have like a math model to say what each card is worth, or like how does that even work?
Yeah. Um, First, so the question is, where do we need balance? Of course, not all cards are equally good. Some cards are better than others.
Of course.
And it doesn't really matter much that you have cards which are better or worse, because all players will be finding or have a chance to find all these cards. So the question is, for example, if you have a choice between two cards, that those two paths are at least comparable. For example, we had a lot of work designing the immigrants in the Feudal Kingdom. You have 4 of them, you choose 2 of them. And we played so many times, and without talking to each other, chose for ourselves which 2 are we going to choose. And then I analyzed which ones are chosen the most and which ones are chosen the least, and why. And then we do comparison of fame, comparison of effects, and comparison of production. And the problem is that I cannot say that an effect is better than production, because it all depends on what your kingdom needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If what you need right now is 2 gold production, which is that's not a cool card, but if that's what you need, that's very valuable. But basically, trying to play it with many people, and especially for the paths where you have to choose one path or the other, trying to see which path is taken most and why. Try to analyze why is that. In Distant Lands, for example, you can choose between going to the Pirate Bay or going through the storm, and almost nobody went through the storm.
Ah.
Exactly.
And I try to analyze why that is, and it's not that the storm is less rewarding necessarily. You get pretty decent cards, especially because it's Distant Lands. You can get people that make your cards stay in play, which is almost non-existent in Distant Lands. So if you want that mechanic and you value that mechanic, you only get it through the storm. And you also get several more seafaring cards if you go through the storm. But the storm is potentially worse in the way that you have to navigate the storm. Of course you have to navigate the pirates as well, but the storm, if you're not set up for it, the storm can be more brutal.
Definitely.
But anyway, we noticed that fewer people took the storm, and I reasoned that I don't think that's because it's weaker. I think it's because it's not as enticing, or people are more imaginatively inspired by going to the Pirate Bay than going through a storm. Storm is dull. Pirates cool. So we remade the narrative to include this part of there's a mysterious island where people have been disappearing, and maybe you can go there, and so in some ways the balancing is not even about game mechanics. It's more like setting expectations and trying to entice people to choose different.
Nice.
Cool.
Interesting. Very interesting approach.
Yeah, I definitely went through the storm. I was
Yeah.
worried that the pirates were going to beat me because I didn't have any swords. So yeah, I went away from them.
Yeah, if you didn't have any swords,
Yeah.
they probably would have.
Yeah,
If you
exactly.
didn't have any swords, then I think actually the storm is a perfect
Way
choice.
better choice for sure.
Yeah, man. Like you said, the stories in this game, man. I
Yeah.
can remember the emotions I had when I had to choose that, and
Yeah.
an awesome guy that fell overboard, and like all these things. It's like
I think this is our motto for this game, that especially you've been saying a lot, that it tells a story without using a single word.
Yeah.
And that I find like is very unique. Like you can see a whole story, like your example with the impressed boy and the Dark Prince. You defeated the Dark Prince, and then a boy's like, oh, and then you take him under your wing, he becomes your squire. It's the story right there, and what you did, you just flipped 3 cards. That's what
That is
it's
crazy
very
storytelling,
interesting, and
Jonathan.
I have so many stories. I have many stories that I've heard about that I just still laugh at. For example, Merlin. You can get Merlin in
Yes,
Adventures,
exactly.
and he has his apprentice Morgana Le Fay. or Morgana, and she cannot be destroyed,
Exactly.
but she can fall overboard.
Mm.
You can, so basically she falls overboard, but then she just appears again up. And some people told me the story that they brought her because they didn't want her to be with Merlin, and they brought her and they pushed her overboard. But every time they pushed her overboard, she just disappeared. She just appeared again, and angrier every time. And then when they when they were going back from this distant lands, they left her in the distant lands, but then she just appeared again, and was apparently back in the kingdom again for some reason. So she just pops up every time, and that's a very interesting story. And it's not a story that I designed. That story comes from the choices and the imagination of people playing it.
Exactly.
So when you're playing this game, you're just as much as an author or making these stories, and that's what I really love. That I of course, some of the cards have inherent stories. So I have a card which develops in this way, and that is of course because I'm thinking when I'm designing this card that this is what happens. But especially in the card combinations, and especially between card combinations of different expansions, that's something that the players will explore, and they will come up with these things.
Definitely.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I had the
rapid fire or
yeah, I think that was kind of our
I
prepared
think you
questions.
pretty much answered everything we wanted to ask you and more. So is there anything you would like to add for people watching? I'm assuming people watching are very big Kingdom Legacy fans and a little bit us fans. So if there's anything you would like to add for those people, just feel free and go ahead and do it in this section.
I haven't prepared anything specific. What we need is more people playing it. So spread the word. That's the most important thing. Kingdom Legacy is already rated as one of the highest % of games.
Yes.
So on Board Game Geek there are over 100,000 games registered, and this is on place 700 or something.
Exactly.
Which means that this is the top % of games in the world. And that's very humbling. I love that. But the reason why it's not higher is because the number of ratings, because its rating is 8.1, which is almost as big as Terraforming Mars, which is 8.3. So the problem is not the rating, the problem is the number of ratings. So we want more people to play it, we want more people to rate it, we want more people to enjoy it. So
well, I've been dealing out the picks left and right.
Ulrik is doing the cool thing. I don't know now, of course, you met a lot of people at Essen, but he came up to you at Essen and you gave him a game box to give to another person to play. So he's been doing that a lot. He's been giving boxes, hey, play this game, play this game, play this game. So he's definitely...
This is the first time I've given it to someone who has never played a solo game before.
Exactly.
And I haven't heard from him yet, but I'm sure he will enjoy it. He plays lots of computer games and is a history buff and reads adventure books, so I think it's right up his alley, but he just needs that nudge, to, solo? No, that's like playing solitaire with 52 cards, right? So,
yeah, it's so strange. There's so many people that I've met that are not solo gamers, and I would count myself as a non-solo gamer before I made this game. I haven't been playing a lot of solo games, and a lot of people who have been enjoying Kingdom Legacy never thought they would be enjoying a solo game.
Exactly.
So I definitely want to encourage people to, if you haven't played a solo game, try it out. And if you haven't played a Legacy game, that's also one of the things that I wanted, because all the Legacy games out there are usually like €100. They're so expensive.
Big boxes.
And what I wanted to do with this is to offer the Legacy experience in a small box, which is affordable, and you can try it out. You can see if you like it.
Exactly.
You can explore if you enjoy the mechanisms where you tear cards and add stickers, and if you like that, then maybe that's a good step for trying other Legacy games later, which are a more heavy investment.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, I think the entry price point is good.
Yeah,
and then
definitely.
You can get sucked in.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're wrapping up now. I have 3 rapid fire questions for you, Jonathan. Non-Kingdom Legacy related. What is a game that you wish you designed?
Dominion.
Dominion. Cool. Is there a game that you don't personally like, but you respect the design because it's the design is very good?
Chess.
Chess. Cool.
I don't like to play chess, but I cannot deny that it's a phenomenal design.
Cool.
Nice.
And what is your favorite dinosaur?
Oh, favorite dinosaur.
First one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
No, it's not the first one because that's not the favorite. The first one that comes to mind is always like T-Rex or something. No, I definitely like the Velociraptors more, the small ones,
Cool.
the agile
Yeah.
ones. That it also reflects how I play games when I
Yeah.
play computer games. I always want to have movement skills,
Nice.
more movement skills than strength.
Awesome.
Cool.
Jonathan, I really appreciate. Thank you so much for taking the time and talking with us. Yeah, we wish you and your family the best, and you have two huge fans of the game out here.
Looking forward to April.
Exactly. Looking very forward to April.
Yes. Yeah, I hope we'll see each other again, or maybe do a follow-up podcast after you tried Exploration.
Of course.
Awesome.
Yeah, and stay tuned. Something is coming from us. Stay tuned.
Great.
We're preparing something nice.
Probably a surprise for you.
Yes, surprise for you. Have a good one, Jonathan. Thank
See
you.
you. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Ooh, that was a lot of information.
That was a conversation.
Yeah, that was very cool. All right, Jonathan, thank you so much for taking the time. It was really insightful to look behind the eyes of a designer of a game that we love, and really a lot of information I actually had no idea about.
Yeah. I'm sorry if I sounded like a fanboy sometimes, but seriously, I don't think you can see it anymore. But the hairs on my arm stood up sometimes when he was talking about the ending expansion and all the stories that other
were
people
telling.
are experiencing. Even though I haven't seen those cards, that just like that's why I feel so much in love with this game, the storytelling part.
Such a good game. Remember, if you haven't tried it, do try it. And even though you might not be a solo gamer, still might be a game that you will enjoy. Make sure to play it and make sure to rate it on BGG. All right. Having said that, in the beginning of the episode, we promised you a surprise, here it is. We have been filming a side-by-side Kingdom Legacy campaign. Me and Ulrik playing our kingdoms side by side.
Battling Kingdoms.
Battling Kingdoms, exactly. That's the name we're going to give it. And shortly after this video releases, we're going to start uploading them. We just wanted to make sure we have a lot of episodes in advance, record them, edit them, find cool thumbnails and stuff. So that's why we waited with them. But now we will start giving them to you. So please watch them and let us know anything you want about Kingdom Legacy. We're always eager to hear feedback. Anything you like, you don't like, something we want to change. Yeah, anything, we are very open to information about.
Yeah, it's a small spoiler. It's amazing how fast those two kingdoms can diverge when you sit side by side.
Definitely.
And the experience of playing side by side is something I would recommend. If you are a solo gamer or if you're not a solo gamer playing this game, you have no interaction, but just, oh, what's that card you got? Oh, how did you do that? That's really nice.
I definitely
really nice.
love it. Love it.
So big recommendation for you out there. But watch us first, do it.
Exactly. All right. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. You can find videos like this here on our channel. You can listen to our audio podcast here on YouTube and on Spotify. You can find snapshots of our game nights on Instagram and our latest news on Blue Sky and Facebook. If you want to support us directly for what we're doing, you can do that on Patreon, where we upload weekly episodes and or videos. Once again, thank you all so much for watching. This was Nick.
This was Ulrik.
And we will see you in the next one.
Bye.